The year is 1927. The world is entering a new era of naval warfare, one where the battleship would no longer dominate the seas, and the aircraft carrier would take its place as the weapon of the future. Among the naval powers seeking to capitalize on this shift was the Imperial Japanese Navy. At the forefront of their ambitions was a ship that would come to symbolize their strength and their vulnerabilities, the IJN Akagi. Launched as part of Japan's expansion in both naval and military power, the Akagi would become one of the most influential warships in history, marking both the height of the Imperial Japanese Navy's might and its eventual downfall. This is the story of the Akagi, a ship whose legacy continues to echo throughout naval history. A story of ambition, innovation, and ultimately, tragedy. The Akagi's journey began in the late 1920s, a time when global naval powers were expanding their fleets and modernizing their forces. The Washington Naval Treaty of 1922 had imposed restrictions on the size and number of warships that nations could build, leading many naval powers to seek innovative solutions within the constraints of the treaty. In Japan, the Imperial Navy saw the aircraft carrier as a game-changing platform, and by 1927 they had begun to build the Akagi, originally conceived as a battlecruiser but later reclassified as an aircraft carrier. The decision was part of a broader naval strategy to enhance Japan's ability to project power across the Pacific Ocean. Construction began with the ship's hull being laid down in Yokosuka, Japan. The Akagi would be one of the first ships to be built using the conversion method, transforming a hull intended for a battlecruiser into an aircraft carrier. With a length of 262 meters and a displacement of over 40,000 tons, it was one of the largest carriers ever built at the time. The Akagi's design was bold and ambitious. It featured a large flight deck capable of accommodating up to 70 aircraft, making it one of the most formidable carriers in the world. The ship's flight deck was massive, allowing for rapid launches and landings of aircraft, vital for Japan's expansionist plans in the Pacific. The Akagi was commissioned into the Imperial Japanese Navy in 1929, and for the next several years, it would serve as the flagship of Japan's carrier fleet. Its early service was primarily focused on training and exercises, but it was evident that the Akagi was becoming the centerpiece of Japan's growing naval capabilities. During this period, Japan was not only expanding its military power, but also its territorial reach. The 1930s saw Japan's invasion of Manchuria, the Second Sino-Japanese War, and increasing tensions with China. Throughout these conflicts, the Akagi was a symbol of Japan's naval modernization, though it did not yet see action in combat. However, by the late 1930s, the political and military situation in Asia was escalating, and Japan's ambitions for expansion in the Pacific would soon require the Akagi to prove itself in real combat. The Akagi's true test came on December 7, 1941, when Japan launched a surprise attack on the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor. The Akagi, as part of the First Air Fleet, was tasked with leading the assault. It was the beginning of Japan's entry into World War II, and the attack on Pearl Harbor would forever link the Akagi to one of the most pivotal moments in history. On that fateful morning, the Akagi's aircraft took to the skies, launching wave after wave of bombs and torpedoes against the unsuspecting American fleet. The attack crippled the U.S. Pacific Fleet, sinking several battleships and damaging many others. The Akagi's role in the attack solidified its place as a central figure in the Pacific War. Though the attack was initially a success for Japan, it would ultimately lead to Japan's underestimation of the resolve of the United States, setting the stage for the major battles that would follow. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Akagi became an essential component of Japan's naval operations in the Pacific. It participated in several significant operations, including the invasion of the Philippines and the attack on Malaya. Throughout these operations, the Akagi's aircraft struck key targets, proving the effectiveness of the carrier in modern naval warfare. Despite these early victories, the Akagi's involvement in the Battle of the Coral Sea in May 1942 marked the beginning of the Japanese Navy's struggles. The battle was the first ever in which opposing ships did not directly engage each other in combat. Instead, the battle was fought entirely with aircraft launched from aircraft carriers. Although the battle was considered a tactical draw, the Akagi was involved in the heavy fighting, and Japan began to realize that the balance of naval power was shifting. The year 1942 would bring Japan's Navy to its greatest challenge. After a series of successful engagements, the Japanese Imperial Navy sought to eliminate the U.S. Pacific Fleet once and for all with a decisive strike against the Midway Atoll. At the heart of this strategy was the Akagi. The Battle of Midway, fought in June 1942, would become the turning point of the Pacific War. Japan's planners believed that striking Midway would cripple the American carrier forces and secure their dominance in the Pacific for good. However, the Japanese Navy underestimated the intelligence capabilities of the United States, who had broken Japan's naval code and were prepared for the attack. On June 4, 1942, the Akagi and the rest of the Japanese fleet launched their assault on Midway. But the U.S. Navy, aware of the attack, had already positioned its forces to respond. American dive bombers launched from the USS Enterprise, USS Yorktown, and USS Hornet attacked the Japanese fleet, and the Akagi was struck by multiple bombs. A catastrophic explosion on board ignited the ship's ammunition stores, leading to a chain reaction that caused devastating fires. Despite the heroic efforts of the crew to save the ship, the damage was too severe. The Akagi sank later that day, taking with it the lives of over 250 men. The loss of the Akagi, along with other carriers such as the Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, was a devastating blow to Japan's naval strength. The Battle of Midway marked a turning point in the Pacific War, and it would be a long road for Japan to recover from this loss. Though the Akagi lies at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean today, its story endures. The rise and fall of the Akagi is a symbol of both the power and vulnerability of technological innovation in warfare. The Akagi was a symbol of Japan's naval ambition, but its destruction was also a reminder of how swiftly fortunes can change in times of war. The story of the Akagi is one of ambition, of technological innovation, and of the shifting tides of war. It reminds us that no ship, no matter how powerful, is invulnerable. The legacy of the Akagi serves as a lesson in the unforgiving nature of naval warfare, where even the most formidable fleet can be brought to its knees by a single, decisive blow.